Up there.
I felt great. I felt really good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great debate.
Yeah, I thought it was a passionate debate. One of the things I've been saying, this is a real choice election. You were highlighting she's going to raise taxes, regulations. You talked a lot about things that I've talked a lot about, repatriating money. How much do you think would come back overseas? How many jobs do you think would be created?
Well, at least $2.5 trillion and many, many jobs, but at least $2.5 trillion. And again, she talks. You know, she's been talking for years, but nothing ever gets done. It's all talk. So I think I brought that out pretty well today, actually.
30 years she's been there. That was a big point. What about the fact that she said, you pointed out, you said go to her website, she's going to raise $1.2 trillion in taxes?
Well, I get even more of a kick where she says go to my website, learn about how to defeat ISIS.
And buy her book.
Can you imagine this? How to defeat ISIS on a website. And that's not the way to defeat ISIS, believe me. How do you think General George Patton would feel about that? Go to his website. Do you think he'd have a website saying how he's going to defeat the enemy?
There was a moment when the second part of the debate, and they started talking about race, and you brought up that she had used that term super predator. Because she tried to play the race card, which her ads have done. Has that bothered you in the course of this campaign?
She used the word, well, you know, she's taken very dishonest ads. She's a very dishonest person. She took and used the word super predator about young black men. And I think it's a terrible term, and they don't like it. And it's, I mean, people, I guess, maybe they forget, maybe they don't forget. But I did want to bring it up.
What about the issues that also foreign policy, another big part of this debate tonight? Iran, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, and her role.
Look, Sean, you know, and I know she's been a disaster. And as you know, I used your name today because you and I used to argue over the war, before the war.
I thought you forgot.
Before the war started.
You know how many times we had conversations about that?
Numerous.
No, and you told me I was wrong. In fairness, for those people that are asking me in the media, you did tell me over and over again I was wrong. And we did have passion, but it was a respectful debate.
And it was respectful, and I understood where you were coming from, but I was against the war. I thought it would destabilize the Middle East. I didn't know it would be managed so badly, in all fairness, and neither did you.
Yeah.
But I really felt that it's something that had to be discussed because I was against the war in Iraq.
Let me ask you one last question, if I can, because the whole issue of the birther controversy, there was the Mark Penn memo that came out. There was a Sidney Blumenthal issue. There was a woman that worked in Texas for her, and then she acts like she had nothing to do with it.
The campaign manager, Doyle. No, she had a lot to do with it. You know it, and she knows it, and her campaign knows it, and I think now the world knows it.
Yeah. Last point. At the end of the debate, maybe a sign of desperation, she tried to attack you as sexist. What is your response to that?
Well, I didn't want to say her husband was in the room along with her daughter, who I think is a very nice young lady, and I didn't want to say what I was going to say about what's been going on in their life. So I decided not to say it. I thought it would be very disrespectful to Chelsea and maybe to the family, but she said very bad things about me. I mean, worse than what she said. She's taking these phony ads, spending hundreds of millions of dollars on phony ads, and I think it's a disgrace that she's allowed to.
Last question about her and you and your differences. What do you take out of this debate going into your next debate?
Well, she's never going to make America great again. It's very simple. It's just going to be more talk. You know, she talks like she's going to do childcare. She's going to do this. She's going to do... She's been there for 26 years. For 26 years, none of these things have happened. Now, all of a sudden, they're going to happen? Not going to happen.
Mr. Trump, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. All right, also tonight I spoke with Donald Trump's son, Don Jr. Take a look. You nervous today?
Listen, obviously, I think I'm more nervous than he is. I mean, it's a big thing. He hasn't been doing this for 50 years like other people. I mean, it's new, and I think he did a great job.
That was one of the things that he brought up tonight. You know, she's been at this for 30 years. That's a long period of time. And one of the things he said is, you didn't get the job done. Things are worse than ever.
And what's going to change? You know, it's always, you get sold this bill of goods, and guess what happens? There's no action. You know, he's going to bring a different perspective to that. He's going to have someone who's actually created jobs, try to create jobs for this country. But, you know, not just talk about it.
But he also said that about the black community. Every 4 years, they go into the black community, the Democratic Party, give us your votes, but the schools are still awful.
Yep.
Since Obama's been president, 58% increased black Americans that are on food stamps, 20% increased black Americans out of the labor force. That's a big number.
And it's terrible. I mean, when you look at, you know, Democratic rule in these cities, Milwaukee, I think it's, 107 years of Democratic rule. You look at Detroit, 57. Look at what's happened in those amount of time. I mean, nothing good has happened. I think it's time for a change. I think it's time to bring some real job creation policies, because if you do that, guess what happens? Everyone wins.
Weren't you surprised, taxes, that she actually said, I'm going to raise taxes. We're going to redistribute wealth. And I'm like, didn't we just do this for 8 years?
Well, and that's always the solution. But if you look further into her tax plan, it also affects the middle class. It's not just the rich. She tries to make it seem like it's just her billionaire donors that are going to be affected by this, but it's ultimately the middle class that's going to pay for this, and then they're going to spend it frivolously. And that's the biggest thing I think my father brought up. It's not just about revenue. Right? Business isn't just about the amount of money you bring in. It's also what you spend. To actually negotiate some of these deals, to actually not just say, here's the price, Don. Oh, okay, that's great. We should just accept that. No. That's not what we should do. We should be negotiating these prices. We should be making sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck from the American taxpayers. And that's what he's going to do.
He did point out something I mentioned a lot on my show, the first president to accumulate more debt than every other president before him combined.
And by the way, there's a point of no return, Sean. This is like if we ran our homes like we run this government, we'd be living on the streets.
No, we'd be sent to jail.
Yeah, correct. We'd be in jail. I mean, it just doesn't work. These policies of guys that have done it before just doesn't work. It's time for a change.
How about, what do you think about when she takes the cheap shots, when she takes the attacks? Towards the end of the debate, the sexist attack. Yeah. She tried to say your dad was racist in a way, and then he came back, well, you're the one that called people super predators. Well, and by the way, stop and frisk did work in New York.
Of course it did. I mean, I'm sitting right next to Mayor Giuliani. I mean, stop and frisk 100% work. I mean, these are policies. He's not saying that should be everywhere, but in places where you have 4,000 people almost killed in the last 8 years, maybe we have to do something about it. Yeah. Maybe we actually have to stop that vicious cycle and do something about it. So these are things. And by the way, I was actually pretty amazed. He didn't take the cheap shot. When she accused him of all of these things, he didn't take the cheap shot about Bill Clinton and the dozens of people that have come out accusing him of all sorts of stuff. Yeah. You know what? It was almost too easy, and I was actually really happy that, I perhaps would have done it myself, but he was very restrained about it. He didn't want to do it, certainly not in front of his family. But you can't have it both ways, and that's what the politicians always try to have.
Yeah. Proud of your dad tonight?
I am. It's amazing to watch.
You only got 2 more to sit through, so,
Exactly.
It's hard. All right, Don Jr., good to see you. Thanks so much for stopping by. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. All right, joining us now live with reaction, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich is with us. Let's start at the end of the debate. It was a real wide opening, and Donald Trump said, no, I'm not going to take the shot. Surprised probably a lot of people.
Look, I think that may have been the best single moment of the entire debate. Hillary was mean, nasty, personal, knew it was a cheap shot, knew it was coming at the end of the debate, deliberately tried to crowd him. He had a perfect moment there to clobber her. And he looked over at Chelsea and he thought, I'm not going to do it. That may have been the best moment of the whole debate for Donald Trump, because it showed that unlike Hillary Clinton, for whom nothing is too mean or despicable, he actually was willing to set a standard of being decent. And I'm very proud of him. I think, after what she had said about him just then, and knowing his temper, he must have been very tempted, and it took a lot of self-control. And it was 100% the right thing.
I was talking to Don Jr. about this. I don't think I would have shown that restraint. I don't think I could have done that. But, overall, here's an interesting thing. We've got 3 polls out that all have Trump winning. Hill has him up 51-42. Time Magazine, Time.com, 58-42. It was 51-42. And Drudge has him up by like 90%. So, obviously, Drudge's audience pretty supportive of Donald Trump. But I was thinking, even after this debate, they talked a lot about the economy. They talked about race issues. They obviously talked about foreign policy issues, but they really didn't spend a lot of time on emails, on Benghazi, on the Clinton Foundation, on the money she takes from Saudi Arabia, on immigration, on vetting refugees, Obamacare. I thought there's still a lot of debating to go on here.
Well, first of all, I got 2 emails from Callista during the debate saying, why are they not mentioning the foundation? So I'm just reporting on behalf of my wife. But in addition, very interesting side note. Barry Castleman, who you know, great observer in Minnesota, just 10 minutes ago sent me a poll that's coming out for tomorrow morning in Minnesota. In Minnesota, they are now tied 42-42. If the Republican candidate is tied in Minnesota, the Democrats are on the edge of a catastrophe. And I don't think people realize this yet. This is Trump's great achievement tonight. There were no major mistakes. There were no fumbles. There were no interceptions. He went on the field as the guy who's got the momentum. He did the big issue perfectly. 30 years, no change. 30 years, no change. All talk, no change. Got that out. Jobs was his side, bad trade deals was her side. He got that out. And so again and again, on the things that are the core of his momentum, he got out what he needed to without making a major mistake. She played nitpicking games with him, trying to get him off balance. She had to do one of two things tonight, and she failed at both. She either had to offer a bold vision of change for America to try to convince us that she's the new Hillary. She failed totally. Or she had to discredit him so much that people would say, you know, he just can't be president. The opposite happened. He was totally comfortable up there. He was comfortable with her. He was comfortable with Lester Holt. He looked like a guy who clearly is capable of being president. You may like or dislike some of his policies. He was comfortable with Lester Holt. He looked like a guy who clearly is capable of being president. You may like or dislike some of his policies. You may like or dislike some of his style. But nothing said that he couldn't be president. And that's what their whole campaign's been based on. They had to somehow demonize Donald Trump. Tonight, he overcame that, and people won't fully appreciate it for another few days. This was an enormous historic victory for Trump, precisely because he did the opposite of what you and I want. He didn't go out as a rollout quarterback, throw deep, force touchdown. He just calmly won the game.
I thought that she was very robotic. She had met. Well, I might take just because of my style doesn't mean that I want to put that on him, because he's trying to be the president of the United States, and I think he was himself, but he didn't fall into the trap. She was robotic in terms of, I will repeat my memorized lines again and again and again and again. I got it. She did her work, but that doesn't mean our policies, for her to admit she wants to raise taxes, for her to admit she wants more bureaucracy, for her to, go through the litany of things that she wants the government to do. She wants more bureaucracy. For her to, go through the litany of things that she wants the government to do, and Trump pointing out, we just doubled the national debt under one guy. I thought was a pretty profound difference.
When you remember that she was the senator from New York for 8 years, and she didn't understand Giuliani's great achievement of controlling crime. She didn't understand the power of the whole stop and frisk movement. The liberals consistently misstate what happened. It is constitutional. It's one nutcake left-wing judge who rendered a judgment that's never been appealed. That's a function of the current mayor of New York. Crime is going up across the country, 11% increase in the last year. And I thought Trump, I was very proud of him. He stuck with stop and frisk. He stuck with law and order. He didn't allow either Lester Holt or Hillary to get him off balance. And he stuck with the facts. 4,000
By the way,
dead
Lester Holt was wrong on two issues. Yeah, I mean, him saying to Howard Stern, I guess so, is hardly supporting a war, although the media narrative wanted to make it that way. And then on the stop and frisk issue, he was wrong on that, too. It was like he had to debate two people.
A little bit. And I did think there were a couple of times Lester was very close to getting into being Hillary's partner.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a break. Mr. Gingrich, stay right there. We'll have more with Newt Gingrich right after the break. Also tonight, we've got reaction from Rudy Giuliani, Eric Trump, Reince Priebus, Laura Ingraham, and so many others. Sheriff David Clark, as Hannity continues from Hofstra University. We're in Hempstead, Long Island in New York, and we'll continue. 3,000 deleted emails. Back with us with reaction, former Speaker of the House and Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. You know, the other thing, I like the speeches that she gave, that she was getting paid $250,000 a shot for, which I thought was an awful lot of money, and she refuses to release the speeches to everybody. What is in those speeches that she doesn't want us to see?
Well, I mean, you know what's in the speeches. Being really sweet and praising all of these big Wall Street institutions that she's now attacking. I mean, it's pretty obvious what those are all about. But again, I want to place a little bit of a different note here. All that stuff's interesting, and all that stuff weakens Hillary. But that's not where the country's voting. The country's voting on, are you prepared to change Washington? Are you prepared to protect my jobs? Are you prepared to do something about trade deals that are terrible? Are you prepared to do something about immigration? I mean, you look at the big things. You know, are you prepared to do something about law and order as we watch city after city have riots? And I think on all of those fronts, at a very substantive level, Hillary Clinton was on the losing side of every one of those historic issues.
I think that's a great
a piece
point.
of what came out of tonight.
And raising taxes, more regulation, and I thought Trump was very articulate. Well, let's bring the trillions back and repatriate the money from multinational corporations. They'll build factories, manufacturing centers. On the issue of energy, which came up, we did try alternative energy, and I think as he said, what do you call those, solar panels, haven't exactly worked out well, but Hillary does want to put coal miners out of work and coal companies out of business, and we could be energy independent in 4 years, and millions of jobs would be created in the meantime.
But there's an example, Sean, where I think you and I would both say there was a clean shot he could have taken, because if he had turned to her and said, how could you tell all the people in the coal industry in America you want to put them out of work? I think that would have sort of brought it together in an emotional way. And there are places like that where if we were scoring him against some abstract college debate thing, you'd score him differently. But scoring him against history, this was a very big win for him. It's a
Hillary's plan. I kept listening to her, especially on her economic plan, talk about, okay, we're going to do more of what Obama did. And by the way, I was thinking Solyndra when she was talking about when he brought up solar panels. We've tried all of these things, tried shovel-ready jobs. He accumulated more debt than 43 other presidents before him combined. Then she gives a whole laundry list of everything that's going to be new in terms of government, and she's going to tax the wealthy. And I'm thinking, okay, all those people are going to leave, and there's not going to be a job left for anybody. Now, here are the facts. The lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, and we've got, the worst recovery since the 40s. Then we've got a doubling of our national debt, 12 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more Americans in poverty. This is a drastic failure.
Well, I think you could call her Secretary of Unemployment, and you'd have a good framework of understanding. Her trade deals kill jobs. Her tax policy kills jobs. Her regulatory policy kills jobs. Her aggressive attitude kills jobs. This is a person who is anti-job creator, anti-business, for bigger and bigger government and more government unions. And that is not a trajectory that's going to get you to a prosperous, full employment America.
Yeah, well said. Wow. Powerful analysis. Mr. Speaker, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. And coming up next, Rudy Giuliani. He'll join us. Also tonight, Eric Trump, Laura Ingraham, Kellyanne Conway, Donald Trump's campaign manager, the chairman of the RNC, Reince Priebus, Sheriff David Clark, and so much more as we continue from Hofstra University. Order at the first presidential debate earlier tonight. I caught up with the former New York City mayor, Rudy Giuliani, in the spin room to get his reaction to tonight's showdown. Take a look. Joining us now, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Right, so when it comes to stop and frisk, that's an issue you know well. I lived in New York City at the time. I know exactly what was going on.
Well, of course I did. And here's the amazing thing about tonight's debate. We know Hillary Clinton was a failure at foreign policy. I don't have to spend any time on that. My God, look at the world. We know she's a failure in dealing with Islamic terrorism at home. I never heard her say Islamic radical terrorism tonight, right?
Nope.
We're getting attacks, and we're waiting. Where is the next one coming from? I never realized she was as ignorant on economics as she is. How in you know what name,
right?
Is she going to get businesses to stay in this country by taxing them more?
She's saying it. She's like, I'm going to tax everybody more, redistribute the wealth. I'm like, didn't we do that for the last 8 years?
She is going to drive businesses out of America, like Obama has driven businesses out of America. You tax them, you regulate them, they go somewhere else. Then the African-American community and the Hispanic community are, like Donald Trump said, let down by their voting for the Democratic Party. Now let's talk about stop and frisk for a minute. When I came into office, New York City was the crime capital of America. We had had 2 riots in the period before me. We had had a year with 2,200 murders. Murder was happening 6 and 7 times a day. I initiated stop and frisk. Stop and frisk is perfectly constitutional. During the time I was in office, murder went down 65%. Michael Bloomberg continued stop and frisk. He got it down 85%.
From where first was when you took over.
Now, what she's talking about is totally wrong and completely ignorant. Maybe it's because she failed the bar exam. Maybe she doesn't understand Terry versus Ohio. Stop and frisk is perfectly legal. What the court found was that the way it was applied by Michael Bloomberg and Ray Kelly was unconstitutional because there were 600,000 frisks. I only had 100,000. The success rate had come down to a lower percentage. Mine had been 40%. But then the case went up on appeal, and the United States Court of Appeals said the judge was prejudiced and removed the judge from the case. And the reality,
Lester Holt and Hillary were wrong.
Well, once again, Lester Holt did a Candy Crowley.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't know the law either. Stop and frisk is going on in America right now. It's approved by the United States Supreme Court. The decision, go read it, is Terry versus Ohio, written by Chief Justice Earl Warren. The opinion is 8-1. If a police officer has reasonable suspicion that you are committing a crime or about to commit a crime, he has a right to stop you. He has the right to question you, and he has the right to search you to protect himself. If he finds a gun, he can take the gun away from you. That is absolutely constitutional. If you do it too much, if you do it with some kind of racial profiling, of which I was never accused and never did, right? And brought murder down 65%, well, that could be what is called unconstitutional as applied. But it's not unconstitutional if you do it the right way. And that's what he is talking about, doing it the right way. It was never found unconstitutional when I did it, and I got murder down 65%. Does Chicago need stop and frisk? Well, Sean,
3,000 shot this year.
Well, how about this? During the course of this debate, 2 people have been shot in Chicago. Well, we're talking here at this debate, 2 people have been shot in Chicago. They don't need stop and frisk? Now, Hillary Clinton's ignorance of the law is astounding to me, to say that the judge found it unconstitutional. She doesn't understand the difference between unconstitutional and unconstitutional as applied.
Yeah.
And she also, and Lester Holt interfering was outrageous, the judge was removed from the case by the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit in a blistering opinion in which they found that the judge ignored numerous pieces of evidence that Michael Bloomberg and Ray Kelly had presented, and they found her to be prejudiced against the police.
Let me ask you the broader question of the debate. There's such defining differences in our time.
Sure. There are two big defining differences. Does she really believe we're going to have more businesses in this country by taxing them another 10, 20% and laying more regulations on them? Or are we going to have more people in the African American, Hispanic, and poorer communities in America out of work because businesses go abroad? Particularly with the ridiculous tax deal, trade deals that she talks about. And secondly, she's been a horrible failure with regard to foreign policy. Iran, Iraq. She's the one who reset the relationship with Putin, not Donald Trump. Well, that did a lot of good. They're in Crimea. They're in the Ukraine. He wants to negotiate with Putin from strength. Let's build up our army. Let's build up our navy. Let's build up our air force. Let's have a modern fleet. Obama is decimating our military forces, and she wants to decimate them even more.
What do you think? You know, there were so many questions coming into the debate. I know you were in some of the debate prep sessions. From what I've read, I hope that's accurate. Were you at some of them, or
all of them? Yeah.
Okay, you're at all of them. But you know, a lot of talk about, well, how should Donald Trump deal with Hillary Clinton? Is that the pitch you wanted?
Well, yes. I think he displayed that he has the temperament to be president of the United States, and I thought it was admirable that he restrained himself at the very end
of the debate
when she made that horrible attack about women, and that woman to make an attack about women. Now that is really phony. Now
she did tee it up for him, and he did say, "I can go there," and he didn't go there.
And he didn't go there, and I admire him for it. But boy, I wouldn't have done it. I'd have gone right for her, and I'd have said,
"I remember your press conference."
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the reason this phony can't be president of the United States.
Yeah.
This is a woman who takes money from countries that stone women, that don't allow women to drive, that imprison women, that treat women as chattel, and she's taken hundreds of millions from them.
Yeah.
There's also a woman that acted as an attack dog for her husband when he was a dog, and disgraced the presidency by having.
But you're glad Donald Trump didn't go there? Maybe a little bit.
I'm glad he didn't, because I think he displayed something to the American people about himself, that he has a heart, because he didn't want to embarrass Chelsea Clinton. But the American people need to know the truth. I mean, when she says she's a feminist, I just laugh my head off.
Yeah.
I mean, I say to myself, boy, if you're going to buy that, then this country's in deep trouble.
Saudi Arabia money says a lot. Women can't drive. They can't go to school. They can't go to work.
How about destroying Monica Lewinsky until Monica Lewinsky produced a dress that had the semen on it? Now, any American executive would be fired for that. Some might be put in jail for it.
He didn't go there, though.
He didn't go there. But the reality is the woman is a phony with regard to feminism. She is a phony with regard to foreign policy. And he also, I thought, went a little easier on the emails. I mean,
he brought him up, though. Why did she delete him?
She belongs under investigation, not on a stage debating for president of the United States. The Democrats can't come up with a better candidate than one who should be indicted for exposing national secrets. Then the Democratic Party's in bad shape.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, great to see you.
Thank you.
And coming up, wow, Dr. Ben Carson, Laura Ingraham, they're next. Plus, later tonight, we're going to also talk to Eric Trump, Kellyanne Conway, Sheriff David Clark, Ryan Priebus, and much more. Straight ahead.
To have another 4 years of that kind of experience.
All right, Donald Trump earlier tonight going after Hillary Clinton at the first presidential debate. Joining us now with reaction, former 2016 Republican presidential candidate Dr. Ben Carson and the editor-in-chief of the great website, LifeZette, and Fox News contributor, nationally syndicated host, Laura Ingraham. All right, your take.
I think tonight Donald Trump probably learned a lot about debating. He never has done a one-on-one debate before. It's a different animal from being up against 8 or 10 other people. And I think in the beginning he was kind of like his old self. As it went on, I felt like he was responding to stupid questions too often. Like the taxes, that's already been litigated. He's not going to release his taxes. He's already said why. That's not the burning issue on the minds of the American public. Sean, I know you know the same thing. When the issue of cybersecurity was mentioned, that was begging for Donald Trump to say, wait a second, is this a joke question? Like the woman who had like a private server in some bathroom somewhere that wasn't as secure as Gmail is going to lecture us on cybersecurity. So that having been said, those moments were left on the table, missed opportunities. What you saw tonight was, I think, an image of strength and an adamant defense of the everyman versus yesterday and policies that didn't work. So she was very polished. Don't get me wrong.
I don't know.
She
memorized her lines well.
She was very polished. She gamed out every response and every question. Yeah. She's a good student, and she showed it tonight.
It didn't impress me because he kept going back to that point, though, which is that her record speaks for itself.
Yeah, she has a lot of experience, and it's failure.
Okay,
her experience is
30
failure.
years of failure.
That's a devastating line.
What's your take on the general reaction to the debate?
Are you asking me, Sean?
Can you hear me?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think Donald Trump did a very good job of dispelling a lot of the rumors that have been circulating about him. You know, that he's a wild man, that he can't control his emotions, that he's unfit to be the commander-in-chief. He was very controlled, perhaps too controlled, quite frankly, because there were some real opportunities to come in there and go for the jugular, which he didn't do.
Would you have rather him come back at the end of that debate and say what everybody knew that he was capable of saying? Did you want him to do that?
Well, not on that women's issue. But, you know, certainly when the question of cybersecurity came up and Hillary Clinton was talking about, you know, the Russians and how they were, you know, stealing our secrets, compromising us, and that would have been a perfect opportunity to come back and say, so is that why you had a private server? Is that why you exposed our agents on the field to danger? You know, those kinds of opportunities. But I think he's going to learn a lot from this, which will help him in subsequent debates.
It's interesting. You and Laura are saying this. Look, there's a lot we didn't get to. He did talk about the deleted emails. That's fine. We didn't really talk about Benghazi. We didn't talk about the Clinton Foundation, the money she takes from Saudi Arabia, immigration, vetting refugees. There's a lot still to get to.
Yeah, when she brings up the fact that, well, there are a lot of the little guys, the window fitters that said you didn't pay them.
Yeah.
That's, again, this is a learning experience.
Small ball, though.
But that is such small ball. But that's where he just laughs and says, wait a second. You guys got paid $200 million.
Right.
And what exactly did you build? Oh, wait, nothing. And there are like entire buildings with my name on it.
$250,000 speeches that she won't release that she gave to Wall Street.
So Goldman Sachs, Benghazi, Sean,
absolutely.
the Clinton Foundation, the corruption, and Ben's talked about this, the corruption in D.C., the Clintons are intertwined inextricably with corruption.
Right.
That plays across party lines, Sean. And I think rather than him getting back on his heels on the birther issue or the bankruptcies or what, it has to be prosecuting the case against her and also speaking right to the magnificence of the American
people. It depends what you want to take out of the debate. But there's one thing that I've been saying, and I think this was highlighted. Yeah. There was a lot of highlights of this tonight. The differences. This is a choice election, Dr. Carson. And on the issue, she's admitting she wants to raise taxes. She's admitting she wants to continue what we did the last 8 years that have failed, where, you know, we have 12 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty, double the national debt, the worst recovery since the 40s. Really? You want to finish that?
He talked a little bit about that. But, I mean, there was just abundant opportunities there, particularly when it comes to regulations. He barely touched on that. And he has said quite publicly before, but not before 80 or 90 or 100 million people, that he's going to look at all of these regulations one by one and get rid of every one that isn't good for the American people. I think that's a very powerful position to take. On the taxes, you know, challenge her on how is raising taxes upon anybody going to improve our economy. Historically, it has not done so. And people will come back and say, yeah, but, you know, Bush cut taxes and we got into a lot of trouble. Well, he also spent an incredible amount of money. You know, it's a combination of the two. And a lot of people don't seem to understand economics. Certainly, you know, some of the things that Hillary was saying tonight would indicate that she's not deep into business. So, you know, those are things that need to be exploited in a big way and made very, very plain to the populace.
Yeah. Sean, I think in the next debate, you're going to see Trump get off the defensive and go on the offensive more. The more he's forward on the balls of his feet, the better it's going to be for him. No. She was not on the defensive, and Lester helped her out a little bit on that.
There were 3 big issues where Lester Holt was wrong.
Right.
His question spinning the economy, I'm like, what America are you living in? Then it was about Iraq, and then it was about stop and frisk. He was wrong, and wrong
and
again.
She said stop and frisk was ruled unconstitutional.
Wrong.
False.
That's right.
The district court judge was thrown off the case, and that case is still ongoing.
That's
so that was actually not true.
Oh, that's a good point. All right, good to see you.
Great to see you, Sean.
All right, appreciate it. And thank you, Dr. Carson.
Thanks, John.
And coming up, Austin Goolsbee, Monica Crowley coming up next. Also tonight, Eric Trump. He'll join us. Kellyanne Conway and Ryan Streebus join us with debate reaction. Straight ahead.
996-2426 today.
And welcome back to Hannity here with reaction to tonight's big debate. Former Obama economic advisor. He got us into this horrible economic mess. Austin Goolsbee, Fox News contributor Monica Crowley. All right, let's look at the online polls. CBS. The Hill is now 55-39. Trump won the debate. Time was 58-42 when I just checked. Drudge Report. As a matter of fact, there's every single online poll but the Clinton News Network has Trump winning this debate.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was following social media during the debate and then after the debate.
How did it look on social media?
All of the elites seem to think that Mrs. Clinton won, which is no big surprise.
Yeah, right.
She is the status quo incumbent candidate. Running
Wall Street Journal, election. NRO guys.
A lot of the elites say, you know, she had command over her facts and she was very self-possessed and so on. Normal average Americans who are responding to these instant online polls, they're giving it to Donald Trump because he was speaking their language.
But by the way, are those the people in Michigan he kept mentioning? Are those the people in Pennsylvania and Ohio he kept mentioning?
And you want to know why? Because he talks to the issues that directly affect their livelihoods, whether it's bad trade deals that have disadvantaged the working and middle classes, Sean, whether it's illegal immigration that has suppressed wages in this country, that has taken jobs away from people who want to work in this country.
Right.
He speaks directly to those issues that are emotional issues because it affects the ability of American people to put food on the table.
Let me ask Austin this. Austin, let me go to the economic side of this. All right, so the worst recovery since the 40s, lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, 12 million more Americans.
No longer true.
Can I
what
finish?
was the third one?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
12 million more Americans on food stamps. Do you mind me fixing this?
No longer
8 million
true.
more in 8 million more in poverty. And
also
so,
no
and he's
longer
doubled
true.
it. And he's doubled.
You're outdated. All your numbers are outdated.
Is it 11 million? Is it 11 million more Americans on food stamps, Austin? I know you eat big, expensive steaks, and you probably have a good life as a professor.
Now we're
How
back
many
on
million
this.
more Americans? How many more million Americans are on food stamps? How many million more Americans are in poverty,
Sean,
Austin? Because it's millions since Obama's been president. Millions.
Sean, you and
Maybe
I
you
are
don't care.
friends.
You're a rich professor.
No, I got you're the rich one. You still owe me money. But separate from that, you and I are friends. And I have been in your shoes. I've been at debate preps for the primaries, debate preps for the general, and I've had to go out and defend the president like in 2012 when he was not up to the job and he didn't do a great job at the debate. You are friends with Donald Trump. You need to call your man who just got to go through the dunk tank and tell him to get on his game because he was not on it tonight.
All right. Well, okay. So CBS, The Hill, Time Magazine, and
CBS
the Drudge Report
had a
Can I finish?
22-person.
Can I finish?
Yep. But you just said this.
They have it. They had it. That Donald Trump won. So they're all wrong. And Austin Goolsbee, a liberal leftist Democrat that thinks the Obama economy is still good, you think it went to Hillary?
CBS
she wants
had
to
a
raise
focus
taxes.
group of
She wants more
voters.
bureaucracy.
Sean, you got to just pause. CBS had a group of undecided voters, and 16 to 6,
that was a Frank Luntz
they
poll.
said
Frank Luntz
Hillary
was predicting for a year Hillary's going to win. Frank Luntz is biased.
There's nothing wrong with admitting that your man did not do a great job tonight, that he came in with a low bar and he banged his head on that bar.
Okay. Monica, is CBS, by the way, CBS is not exactly conservative. Time Magazine, The Hill is not exactly conservative, except for Joe Concha.
I'll tell you why you're seeing those poll numbers tonight. First of all, 70% of the American people believe that the country's on the wrong track, meaning that this is a change election. Mrs. Clinton is the status quo incumbent. Donald Trump is the change agent. More importantly, Donald Trump speaks like a